Hey everyone, this is Leo Young with Impressive Reviews, episode 15, and today I'll be going over The Flash, season 2, episode 5, titled Monster. So I want to go straight into the review because I don't actually have much time, so let's jump right into it. So the episode opens up with showing us that Barry now lives, or at least I guess, with Cisco until he can find his own house. And they have this little funny scene where Barry's making Cisco breakfast, and Cisco's like, "Man, I'm a grown man. I can butter my own toast." Yeah, sure you can, Cisco. But they're speaking about Harrison Wells, or now he wants to be called HR, who Cisco doesn't trust, which is kind of funny. You would think that it would be Barry, but whatever. So somewhere else, they don't actually explain. Caitlin goes to visit her mother to find help with her powers, and she's placed in a bio lab working with one of her mother's scientists, and pretty much shows that Caitlin's mother is probably smart or smarter than her daughter. So they use Caitlin's powers to cool down this radiator type device, which she does, and she does it completely. So her mother and her have a little fight about Caitlin going, missing in action. And the scientists notice that the reason that Caitlin's able to create ice is that she's not creating ice, but she's absorbing the energy, making cold. So in the comics, Killer Frost is a firestorm villain. And one thing, if you've watched like Attack on Arkham and a bunch of other movies, she would kiss people, but they would freeze. That's because she's not freezing them, but she's taking the heat and the energy out of them, which is pretty much what she does. But as they begin running more tests during the process, it's revealed that Caitlin and her mother grew distant because of the death of her father. Now we go back to Star Labs where HR is giving everyone coffee and donuts, and he's very active and very happy. And he talks about his Earth, and he's like, one thing is he gives a hint that it may be a little bit darker than how he acts, because he says coffee beans were exterminated because of a blight. So it's like, blights don't just knock out one specific thing. So it's like I'm Earth 19. I have to go like research it again, but I think it was like a steampunk version. Anyways, so Barry returns to the CCPD and finds himself like being quote unquote, I would say, bum rushed by Julian and Captain Singh. And Julian's upset because Barry doesn't get fired. Like Barry's like late. He brings people into the workspace. He's eating, and the director is, or Captain Singh is like, well, Mr. Allen, don't let it happen again. We really don't want to lose you. And Julian's just befuddled by it. That's right. I used befuddled in a sentence twice. So, um, as Julian, no, not Julian. I'm sorry. As Barry goes to his office. I'm mixing. I'm beginning a shipping name. Barry and Jewelry, whatever. As Barry goes to his office, he gets a call from Cisco about a giant monster that's running around, and the CGI is actually amazing. And when I saw it, I kind of thought it was a Dominator thing, but well, you'll see later on in the video. But the Flash races over to help Iris protect some civilians in a bus, and then he races over after the creature only to somehow lose it. And this creature is about the size, like half the size of, I don't know what a skyscraper counts as. I would say 20 feet. He's bigger than a transformer, so you don't lose him that easily. So Barry heads back to the CCPD to try and get access to Julian's, his information, because he's able to find because when Barry is the Flash, Julian's working. So Barry needs notes, and Julian has the notes, but Julian doesn't trust Barry. So to get that trust, Barry adheres to his asshole sense of or his nature, and it works. He becomes like a little intern or something. So Iris arrives a bit later, and she has lunch with Barry, and they mention that Joe is blowing off dates with the DA, and Iris is like, "I'm gonna go talk to him and let him, find a new woman." And as they're talking, Julian texts Barry about a crime scene, and Barry speeds over, and they have a little talk, and Julian pretty much says that he isn't a full fan of the Flash, saying that he makes the police lethargic, useless, and all that. And it's then they discover that the creature is being led by something. Like it goes into these tight corners and then it disappears. But they don't fully understand yet. A minute later, the same creature does appear, but only for a second and then disappears. So back with Caitlin, as she's leaving, her mother's scientist traps her, basically wanting to dissect her and do tests on her so he can become like the new head honcho. Well, not the new head honcho, but he doesn't like the fact that Caitlin's mother is pretty much using his work. So he's going to do this on his own. So he tries to stop Caitlin, or he lays a hand on her, and she pretty much freezes him. And her mother runs into the room, calming her daughter, hugging her, and they basically like create a bond. and then her mother sets her free. Not sets her free, but lets her go. Because it's like, you would think her mother was going to betray her. No, her mother actually cares. So in Star Labs, HR and Cisco, with HR, he mentioned something about there being a Flash on Earth 19. They don't really go into it. And he also says something about sweaty buff men. I wasn't paying that much attention for that part. But Cisco loses interest and he leaves, and that's when we see HR speaking into a pen, which acts as a recorder. So to wrap it up, or for the final act, Julian and Barry are talking about metas at the CCPD, and Julian kind of gives us a hint that he's jealous or upset that he is not a metahuman. And Barry stands up for metas, not like, oh, metahumans are people too, but more like, metas have their problems. They can be scared, just like us. And Julian's like, I'm not having none of that. Get out. I'm done, and I'm sick of you. And it's like, it made Julian seem like a horrible person. So Barry heads back to Star Labs to work with Cisco and HR. And then Barry comes to the realization that HR isn't actually helping. He's just saying stuff that they say. And not wanting to take the chance, Barry gives Cisco the green light to vibe him. So they go through with it, or they go through his bag, like they see, and they get caught by him. And this is where we learn that HR isn't actually a villain, he's a novelist. In fact, he's more of a novelist than he is a scientist. And that's when Caitlin arrives, right before the Monsters app goes off. And Flash runs over, they have this little, like, chase scene, but Flash discovers that the monster is basically a hologram. And that's why he has been unable to catch it. That's why it disappears, and that's why like energy surges go off whenever it's nearby. It needs energy to move. So the CCPD is about to fire. Flash pretty much stops them from shooting because bullets go through holograms, and Julian finds the person who's behind it. No, not CCPD, CSI. They're good like that. So Barry heads up to a building, which is pretty much how you would get a hologram. You'd need reflective capabilities. And well, not Barry, but the Flash finds a kid who's making the holograms. And he hands him over to Julian, but right before Flash showed up, Julian was about to shoot him. Just like that. But he didn't know he was a kid when he did it. So the ending, HR is pretty much telling his truth that he's not a scientist. He's only a novelist. He's the face of Earth 19 Star Labs. And he gives the ideas like, here's what you got to do. Now just make them. I guess you would say he's you know what? I'm not even going to make that comment. So he wants to prove to them that he can be useful. And if not, he goes home. No questions asked. So finishing up the episode, Julian heads over to not Julian. Barry heads over to the CCPD. And this is where we get Julian's background, and he explains why everything's basically against him. Back where he comes from, Julian is held by high standards, but he just wants to be him. He wants to be a scientist. However, now that metahumans come up, he kind of feels that they made his purpose worthless, because nobody knows how Superman really shoots heat vision from his eyes. Like, we can say it all we want, but like until we actually meet the real guy, yeah. But it ends off with Julian and Barry bonding over a beer. And the final credit scene shows Caitlyn's mother saying the more she uses her abilities, the more she becomes Killer Frost, or her power become irreversible. And that's when her powers activate. The Killer Frost persona, I guess, breaks the computer. Not happy about hearing that. So we're gonna have to see how that goes. But there may not be a personal thoughts video. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Please comment, share, subscribe, and like. Any feedback will be helpful, and I'll see you tomorrow.